Hey, what's going on, beautiful Jellyfish? This is Tracy, and today I'm going to be doing a video on basically talking about unplayable cards in Limited. I'm talking about this like if you're someone who's drafting, or if you're someone who's doing like a sealed event or something like that. I feel like you're going to hear the term unplayable cards from a lot of like veteran players, and I kind of just wanted to do a video talking about like ways to like avoid those types of cards, because, and I've said this before, so much about like playing sealed and doing drafting is you're gonna know the more times you do it the cards that you want to stay away from, and then you're on the flip side you're gonna realize what cards that you definitely want to pay attention to, standout cards in the sets that you're definitely gonna want to notice. So I wanted to do a video talking about unplayable cards, and I think we should first define what I mean by that. I would say honestly the definition is kind of in the name. Unplayable, it's cards that are just not very good, and I'm going to give a couple of examples of cards that I don't think are good, and it's kind of up to you to substitute these, you know. I'm not going to be there for every set being like over your shoulder, by the way, don't play this card, you know, like you may not always have someone like that. So these are just general examples and definitely things to keep in the back of your mind. So the first card, the first thing I would say, oh, I couldn't even read my own handwriting for a sec, is 1 mana 1/1s. Card like Fugitive Wizard. This card's really bad. You should never play this card, ever. It is a non-playable card. Think about this card, think about 1 mana 1/1s late stages of the game. If you top deck Fugitive Wizard on turn 18, is it going to be good? No. Now, let's take a card like Sludge Crawler. Guys, I cannot get enough of this card. Whenever I talk about 1 mana 1/1s, I'm like, but Sludge Crawler though. This card's incredible, guys. It's 1 mana, it's got Devoid in just like whatever. Those, it doesn't matter. The real thing is that for 2 mana you pump it. Yes, it only gets it until end of turn, but guys, late stages of the game when you have nothing going on, you just pump your Sludge Crawler. One of my favorite things to do when I was playing with this in Battle for Zendikar is I used to just like I was swimming with my Sludge Crawler, and like they wouldn't know, like, am I gonna pump it? Do I have a combat trick in my hand? Am I gonna play a creature at the end of like, they just don't know. So it's like awesome. I love that you can just pump it like whatever you want. This card is amazing. It's also really great at late stages of the game. You play the Sludge Crawler on turn 1, you're like, yeah, dude. If you play it on turn 12, you're like, this is still sweet. So avoid vanilla 1/1s that don't really do anything. Substitute it for 1 mana 1/1s that really do something, like Sludge Crawler. I freaking love this card. I can't say enough good things. This is like one of my favorite like limited type of cards ever. Card's awesome. Okay, cool. So that is like the first point. Second thing is, just as a rule of thumb, things that I would define as unplayable: instants that gain you life. I really hate cards like this. Card like Angel's Mercy. Please, play, like new players think that these cards are so good. They're really not. First off, this card's really bad because it's 7 mana instant speed you gain, 4 mana instant you gain 7 life. That's just not great how that math works at all. So what I would say for if you're someone who's like, hey, I want a little bit of life gain, you know, what should I do? I would try to think about creatures that are going to gain you a little bit of life. Let's talk about a card like Seraph of the Dawn. This card's a really solid draft card, or sealed card, just limited card in general. It's a 4 mana 2/4 flying lifelinker. It's super simple, but it really helps you, because when I did my video on like correcting like drafting mistakes, which you should definitely check out if you're interested in the whole limited like format and all that stuff. I talked about how, you know, you want to have like about 17 creatures, and then say like 17 creatures, 17 lands, 17 plus 17 is 34. You have like about 6 cards. Now give or take a couple, you know, points on there. You've got about like 6 instants and sorceries, mana ramp, all that sort of stuff. You don't really have that much room. So why are you clogging your deck with cards like Angel's Mercy that don't even do anything, when you can gain a little bit of life and have it stapled onto a pretty solid creature, because this is a 2/4 flyer and it's got lifelink. So definitely think about cards that have, you know, that instant speed ability. Can they be like stapled onto a creature? If so, it's always going to be better, because you're not wasting those 6 precious slots that you have for like removal and things like that. You're not wasting it with like dumb cards that gain you life. You're putting it for really good cards that are going to benefit your deck, or for things like mana ramp, things that you really need. Okay, I don't know why I just did finger guns at you guys, but it happened. Okay. Then we have cards that are too situational. I'm gonna give the example of Timely Reinforcements. Funny story about this card actually. I used to run this card when I did played Modern. I used to run this card on my sideboard all the time, and reevaluating, I would say I think a card like this is crazy situational, and I'm not a huge fan of it, especially in a limited type of mindset, because it's situational. It requires way too many things to go right for you to have the best ability possible. So for 3 mana, if you have less life than an opponent, you gain 6, and if you control fewer creatures, you get 3 dudes. Now looking at this card, you're like, this is sweet. For 3 mana you could potentially gain 6 life and get three creatures, and I'm like, okay, but you're under the assumption that those 2 things are going to happen. Now realistically, if you have one but not the other, for 3 mana gaining 6 life is kind of okay. For 3 mana gaining 3 dudes, it's pretty good, but I'm not a fan of cards like this. I don't like cards that are like, if this, then this, and they have to fill the blanks and everything's got to be perfect. Like, Magic games aren't like that. It's just not the reality. So avoiding cards like that, I would say like I don't want to say substitute, but a card that I do really like is a card like Call to the Feast. So I talked about earlier about how your instants and sorceries are so precious to you. Like, think about the scene in Lord of the Rings where it's like, my precious. Okay, they are very precious to you because you have very few of them. So I like cards that do tokens. This is a really solid instant for the amount of mana you're paying. It's 4 mana and you get 3 vampire tokens, but they have lifelink. Like, this is sweet. Regardless of the state of the board, regardless of literally anything, you are going to get 3 tokens with lifelink. It just doesn't matter what anyone says. This is just gonna happen. So I would definitely say prefer cards like this. This works really well too with you're doing like vampire synergy. If your deck requires vampire synergy, I really love a card like this. I'm a huge fan of token gen things. I think they're very underrated. I'm not saying run 4 of this card, but it is a really solid card if you don't really have that much in that removal, in your removal like type of category, like those 6 cards that you have in limited where you're like, what do I fill this void with? Removal is the top thing, and then you have a couple other and you're like, I've got a slot, let's throw in Call to the Feast. Cards like this is pretty solid. Okay, I have major issues with combat tricks in Magic because a lot of combat tricks are just really bad. Like, there's just, like, let's be honest here, guys, there's just really bad cards and sets, and I don't just mean like bad for EDH or bad for Modern. I don't mean that. I just mean like bad limited cards, unplayable cards. That's what I'm talking about. I really hate lame combat tricks. Let's take the card Grotesque Mutation. This is just a really bad card, and there's some people who like eat stuff like this up, and I'm like, please don't. Okay, so it's a 2 mana instant. Target creature gets +3/+1 against a lifelink on a turn. So like, best case scenario, your opponent swings in or you swing in and you're like, oh, combat trick, I'm gonna swing instead of 3, I'm gonna swing in for 6 and I gain 6 life. Again, guys, the very few cards that you have in your deck that can be instants and sorceries and all that sort of stuff, you don't have room to be running bad cards. Like, you can't afford, you can kind of like afford to run like bad creatures, because at the end of the day, creature's gonna still do its thing and attack and block and do whatever else, but like, you don't have a lot of room to like put in really bad cards in the spot that should be basically removal. I'm not saying you have to, like, you're not probably gonna get like 5 removal cards. If you do, you slay. But if you're drafting, you're really not gonna be past millions of, removal cards and things like that, and that's really where your focus should be going. So, yeah, not a huge fan of combat trick, and I'm not saying never run combat tricks, I'm just saying, and instead of this, run like Valorous Stance. Okay, this card's sweet. I love cards that do multiple things. I talk about the cards like this all the time because I can't get enough of them. They're just incredible. Being able to do one thing is good, but being able to do like 2, 3 things is like 20 times better because, again, situations. You don't know if this card is going to work in X, Y, and Z situation, but it's 2 mana, so target creature gains indestructible each turn. Hey, that's pretty sweet. But also, you can destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. So that is a little situational. There needs to be something on board with toughness 4 or greater. However, that first ability is always going to be good. You can always just casually make a creature indestructible and kill someone's thing in combat. Pretty sweet. And the other ability is really good removal. So try cards like this instead of really awful combat tricks that kind of sort of don't really do anything. Especially cards that have options. Always pick the cards that have options because they're the best. If you know anything about me, you know that I have very strong feelings about equipments. In limited, don't. Let's take the card Slagworm Armor. This is an awful card. Don't ever run cards like this. I will come up to the grave, from the grave, and haunt you. Like, don't run cards like this. It's awful. It's a 1 mana, and then you equip it for 3. Cut the creature gets +0/+6. You're like, oh, this is sweet. Like, I'll just have like this 1/12 and it'll be awesome. No. It's not awesome. It's really bad. It's bogging down a card slot in your deck. So, instead of awful equipments, why don't we just try, and a lot of times too with like equipments, they'll give things like lifelink or flying or whatever. Instead of that, why don't you just run really good creatures that have those things? Let's take the card Aerial Responder. Okay, this card basically sums up to me everything that I love about Limited, because people see cards like this and they're like, oh, I'd never run this card in any other format. But like, guys, in Standard, in Limited, this is a freaking house. It's 3 mana, 2/3 flying, vigilance, lifelink. Like, what the hell? Who authorizes this? This card is sweet. Always runs cards like this. Always run these really sweet bodies where you could run an equipment that says it gives lifelink. Why not just run a sweet creature like this where you don't even need the enchantment that's equipment that says lifelink? I pretty much never ever, you never see me running equipments like ever in Limited. I would just strongly, unless you're talking about a set like Mirrodin or something where like everything's an artifact and like everything's an equipment, that's a little different. But you know, a lot of times they'll put like 5 or so equipments in there. They're most of the time they're like really good, unless it's like a godsend. Like, you probably just don't want to be running it. Godsend, that card's lit, by the way. Okay, and the last point I want to make is bad vanilla creatures, and this point can get a little bit twisted because, let's be fair, there are some lit vanilla creatures. Let's take the card Bastion Enforcer. This is a really bad vanilla creature. Think about it this way. How much mana are you paying at this point for how much power and toughness you're getting? You're paying 3 mana for a 3/2. That's not really good, because it's like, it's not even like a 3/3. It's got that like lower defense, which sucks, and it's only got 3. It's just not really a great card. But let's take the card Leatherback Baloth. This is a sweet vanilla creature, because look at it. It's 3 mana. Yes, it's triple green, but like, you're not really gonna have like, you know, it's not like Fixing where in like Modern where you're like, oh my god, like I need to get 3 white symbols. No, like, it's pretty easy to do because most of your deck are going to be basic, so it's not really an issue, and you're probably only running like 2 colors, potentially splashing for a 3rd, but you're literally just splashing. Most people like throw in like a Planeswalker or a Bomb. That's only like 1 or 2 cards. So you're pretty much going to be doing 2 colors usually. It depends on the format though. There's some, it depends on the set. Some sets are advocating for 3 colors, but most are 2. So that's not really an issue. It's 3 mana for a 4/5. Guys, this is a sweet creature. Cards like this are awesome. Definitely check out those big bodies rather than a card like Bastion Enforcer, which you're not really getting that much value out of. This card, Leatherback Baloth, you're getting so much value out of this card because you're paying only 3 mana to get 4 power and 5 toughness. Oh, card's great. That is it, guys. Let me know what you think about the, I feel like one of those books, like the eat this, not that, like try this, not that. Let me know what you guys think about this, about instead of just being like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, it's like, don't do this, but then also try this. Now again, it's hard in the moment. Like a lot of times you're gonna pick up cards like Bastion Enforcer and like, you know, cards that are just kind of like, man, it's gonna happen, but it's all part of the learning process. Take these tips and listen to veteran players and hear what they have to say, and, you know, figure out what cards are really good in, you know, the set. It's like, I don't want to say learning another language, but you're learning the set and you're learning, you know, that, but you're going to notice the more you draft and the more you play Limited and the more you do Sealed, like, you're going to pick up on like recurring themes. You're going to see like, this creature is similar to this creature. And I remember playing with like a card like Sludge Crawler in this set, and Sludge Crawler was really great, so like, this card's probably really good and it's comparable to Sludge Crawler. Like, you're going to do things like that. Sludge Crawler is like my ultimate example of like any great Limited card. It's like Sludge Crawler. Love that card. Okay. That is it. That is it for this video. I will see you guys on Thursday with my next one.